Hello and welcome to Set Talks, the podcast that helps you navigate and connect with the Colorado film scene. Today's guests are Sheryl Glubok and Iana Dontcheva. Sheryl is the writer and director of Welcome to the Fishbowl, and Iana is the producer on the film. Welcome to the Fishbowl is a story about a mid-40s mother of two that gets a career-making opportunity. All she has to do is chaperone a narcissistic literary legend 350 miles to an awards ceremony in Telluride, Colorado. What could possibly go wrong? Hello, how are you guys doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having us. This is so fun.
No worries. How's your guys' week going?
It's good. Is it only Tuesday?
Yeah, I know, right? I agree. It feels like Thursday for sure.
Yeah, it's going well. Thank you.
It's going well, yeah.
Yeah, you guys are into post-production on the film, right?
That is correct.
That's exciting. Cool.
That is correct. We actually have our editor visiting from New York here
Oh, wow.
this week, so we're very happy to host her.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
exciting. Cool. All right. So the editor lives out in New York?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was a big film that I heard all over social media. When did you guys film this?
We shot September 3rd to early October, basically the first, about 5 weeks.
Nice. Okay. Well, before we get into the film, I'd love to learn a little bit about you guys. Can you just kind of tell me about your writing, directing, producing experience, and everything from maybe like college to Welcome to the Fishbowl.
Amazing. Iana, why don't you start?
So I hail from Europe. I went to college in France, in Paris, and was living there and working there in the film industry for many years. And then was brought to the United States by my husband, who's
All right.
American, whom I decided to jump that leap and cross the pond. Coming here, I had to scale back a little bit my work in the film industry, also because of family. But am getting back to that now, to what I used to do before I was a mom myself.
Cool.
But that's the world I come from. It's film production, which I did for many, many years in France, specifically in the narrative fiction space.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. So was your husband just visiting, or?
You mean in
When I
France?
met?
Yeah.
No,
When you
I was actually, we actually met at the Chicago Film Festival. I was
Oh, cool.
there with the film, and he was working at the festival, and that's how we met. We stayed in touch, yada, yada, yada. One thing led to another.
Sure.
We got married, and
Awesome.
yeah.
Cool. Well, how about you, Sheryl?
So yeah, I did not study film in college. I went to school thinking I was going to do something completely different. I studied international relations. I knew I wanted to travel, and quickly decided that, I think I do want to make films for a living. And this was in the early 90s. And my parents were like, well, we're not paying for film school. So I managed to spend my semester abroad that I had to do as part of my major at the film school in Prague. So I don't know if you've heard of FAMU, but this was the early 90s. This was, 2-3 years after the Berlin Wall came down. It was an amazing time, and it's one of the best film schools in Europe. So I had the beautiful opportunity to go and make my first short film there, and said, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And honestly, we are here now based on that experience. It's taken me that long, so I'm 54, not afraid to say, and I had this dream of being a writer, director, having my own production company, making all the types of films and telling all the types of stories that meant something to me and that I thought would mean something to others. And it's taken this long to get to a position to be able to do that.
That's cool. Well, and how did you guys meet?
So we met in Denver, so we have that to thank Denver for.
And your
for
husband.
Sure. We met actually around Denver Film Society, Denver Film, and the different events of the film industry here in Colorado, and just stayed in touch. And started talking about film, started talking about what we aspire to, and actually realized quite quickly that we are in similar positions. We're on the same page. We're in the same stage in life, and we kind of want the same things, and we can join forces to make that happen.
That's awesome. And ultimately, what led to Welcome to the Fishbowl?
Well, that is a longer story, but I will try to keep it short. It's also pretty much the story of the film. So I had moved to Vermont. I got married in my, I was 30, and decided that, if I'm going to make this career, as we all know, we're talking to people who are in the film industry, right?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
So we all know it's a very consuming career. It's very difficult to break in, and it's very difficult to sustain yourself even once you are in it. So back when, and I'm a little older than you and perhaps some of our listeners, but it came clear to me that if I wanted to have a family, then I should do that and then work at getting back into the industry if that's what I was going to be able to do. But it really felt like I had to kind of choose. But in my early 40s, I had 2 young children. My husband was doing well in his career. He's a professor. We were in Vermont, and I turned around and looked at myself and my world and said, how did I get here? As happy as I was being a mother and a wife, I also had dreams and aspirations that were not really being fulfilled, and no one was really even asking if that was even something I cared about or wanted to do. So this story came from a very real place. And while I was living in Vermont and struggling with these issues, I met a wonderful writer named Donald Rae. Donald Rae is my co-writer of this screenplay. We met through the film industry there in Vermont and basically joined forces to tell this story. And it's been amazing ever since. And we started writing this version of the script in 2013, and it took us 11 years to get it into production. Oh,
wow. Okay. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, can you talk to me about your writing process, and whatnot?
So, as I said, I started in my early 20s saying this is what I wanted to do. I even went to LA for a bit to try to, swim in those waters, and realized pretty quickly that a couple things. One is the industry was not looking for people like me to be a writer, director, producer of content, So I realized that, and I also realized I didn't have a craft yet. Because it's one thing to go out there with ambition and ideas. It's another thing to be able to back it up in a professional setting.
Sure.
And so I ended up going, I took a step off that track and said, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'll do it on my own terms. And the things I needed to be able to do it on my own terms was become a better skilled writer. So I got my MFA, and I actually didn't get it in screenwriting. I got it in fiction. But we all know there are wonderful MFA, Masters of Fine Arts programs in both screenwriting or fiction. I mean, writing is a craft, and you have to show up every day and do it.
Sure.
There are no shortcuts, and you need to know how to write, and then I would say you also need to know how to rewrite. And for film, you also have to be able to write under pressure. This is not short stories to be published in a collection over time.
Right.
And it's a very different skill. So in terms of process, I mean, I taught screenwriting. I could definitely go into a lot of it, but maybe ask me something more specific, like if there's something you have struggled with as a writer. I know you write as well.
I guess the discipline of especially for a feature. I've only ever done short films, so it's I feel like trudging through a first draft of a feature would be a lot, So it's do you have a certain schedule that you kind of follow, and the process of getting the first draft out and then ultimately going back and reworking it and refining it and refining it and refining it?
Yeah, I'll say a couple things. One is there's no shortcut. You just have to do the work, show up, and the muse needs to find you working. So there is that. I found Save the Cat really valuable. Save the Cat is a screenwriting book by Blake Snyder. It is, there's no shortcut, as I said, but at the same time, the way he kind of laid out 15 beats that every screenplay has in order, you chip away at the structure. And his point is screenplays are structure. So if you kind of get a sense of what structure, give your story a structure,
right,
then you can start fleshing it out, and then you can write it and revise it and revise it and revise it. So whatever can get, and that's why I just like his format, if you will. It just helps you have guideposts along the way so that it makes it less of a beast that seems overwhelming.
Yeah, it's nice to know what to do too. I'm obsessed with script structure, even though I've only really done short films, but I am like obsessed with it. I think my favorite book is Story by Robert McKee. If
It's
you
a
ever,
wonderful book.
I love that. I continue to read it over and over, to be honest, like as I approach new ideas, just to be inspired.
Does that help you actually write it though?
That's a good point. Yeah, right. I mean, like right now I'm about to try to write my first feature.
Good.
And yeah, I'm kind of reading it as I go and kind of, you know,
Read Save
each
the Cat.
chapter. I have
Read
never,
Save the
yeah,
Cat.
I haven't heard of that
It's-
one.
It's industry standard now, frankly.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes, when you start sending your scripts to, if you end up wanting, you know, to get it produced potentially by someone else, we can talk about the state of the industry if that's of interest, but
Yeah.
they will talk about your inciting incident, you know,
Right.
your break into two, the midpoint, like all of the words that he coined as those. I mean, he didn't make it up. He just put it, he watched, you know, he was a screenwriter himself, and he watched hundreds of films and said, here's what they all have.
Yep, right.
And it's not that they're formulaic in the sense that it's the same beats, but in essence, there has to be this type of event at this point.
For sure. Yeah, no,
And
I'm
it really
obsessed with
demystifies.
that.
It demystifies it and helps. So,
Totally, yeah. I always get a little irritated when people are like, "Oh, I don't want to read script writing books. I want it to be like original or something." And it's like, no. Like, you know, there's a craft to song making. It's like there's also a craft to screenwriting. So I never buy that
100%.
when people tell me, "Oh, I don't want to read script writing books," because I don't know. I think I've read like 15 different ones, but I haven't read that one, so I will go look that up. No, that's awesome. Well, so what made you set it in Colorado?
we live here.
Just okay, cool, yeah.
Story set here. It was, you know, it was inspired by real life, and I wanted it to. And I'm a big fan of location-based, you know, indie filmmaking where location and place is infused in the storytelling. So no question, it was always going to be in Colorado.
Nice, and what a gorgeous spot to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
It is.
Well, can you talk about like producing the film and ultimately like, you know, every filmmaker is like, if I only had the money, you know,
Of
like how
course.
do you go about raising the money and coordinating, you know, actors? And I don't know if there's like a kind of a pipeline that's already in place after the film, or are you just making it and then kind of sending it to film festivals? But ultimately leading up to production, what does it take?
To prep basically and to
Yeah.
develop. Well, I mean, it's a process of several years, as you can imagine. We raised all the money for the film privately. We did have conversations with folks in the industry and potential distributors, and there was actually quite a bit of interest about the film. But then ultimately we decided that was not the right path for this film, and that we wanted to keep control over it and raise the money privately, and kind of went on this quest, a fundraising quest here in Colorado. None of us had done this exact thing before, so it was a learning curve for sure. I have quite a bit of experience with funding in the European model and international co-production model, but not so much here, and specifically not in the private equity or fundraising space here in the United States. So definitely I learned a lot from the process, and I'm happy to say that it was quite successful. You know, we had some goalposts and we were able to reach those. We realized something I want to share because I think it's noteworthy. We realized at a certain point that all of our investors and donors were women.
Nice.
And as of late, we've had some contributions by men, but for a while, it was only women. And I think that's
cool.
a noteworthy situation that there's, you know, wonderful, in Colorado specifically, wonderful women supporter of the arts and of women in the arts.
For sure.
And so that was very helpful.
No, and
with
I
the
know
process.
a couple of
Yeah.
Whiffam Co. Folks. I think I feel like we're on the production in different roles, which we can get into that later. But
Sure.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So to begin with, it was mostly female like people donating
Supporters.
and supporting to the
Yeah,
film. Okay.
yeah. And so the funding model, if you will, is private equity, tax deductible donations, as well as support from the state, from the film commission, so that we can keep the film here in Colorado.
Nice, nice.
So that is, it's kind of a, piece together from that.
No, that's cool.
Those sources. But the beauty of it is that it's entirely independent, and obviously we have maintained control over it.
Very cool. I think I had this for later, but can you talk a little bit about the tax incentive? I think maybe it was Elizabeth told me from WIFMCO that you guys were able to take advantage of the tax incentive that had just been modified. And I just had Skylar on here, if you guys know him from the film office. He was giving me a little bit of detail on it, but from your perspective, can you just kind of give me a rundown of the tax incentive and how you guys were able to leverage that?
Well, so I think we were among the first productions to apply for the changed version of it, which is the new iteration, which is now a tax credit as opposed to a rebate. So that was last year in February, so a year ago. So we applied, and the conditions for it, or the rules for it and requirements are similar to the previous one. It's we have to be able to have a certain percentage spent in Colorado, have at least half of the crew and cast be Colorado based, and all of that. But we were already doing that, so we were happy to oblige, because we were already doing that. We had already cast practically all of our Colorado cast, and we had certain crew members in mind, and all of that. So we just applied for it, and were granted that support, which we're very helpful, very, very happy about, and thankful for. And we actually just recently reapplied for an additional support for post-production, which we are trying to have happen in big part here in Colorado as well, and to support post-production industries here in Colorado.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah, that was something I was really excited to hear Sky talk about, was that, part of getting the tax incentives, you have to have 50% of your crew locally here.
Yes.
Which is really cool, I thought.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the goal, is to be able to employ local folks, both cast and crew, and it's a way of reviving the industry, or revitalizing the industry here, and it's completely a fair game. What we discovered through our process was there are wonderful actors in Colorado. There are wonderful crew members in Colorado. There's really who to work with and make films with. So
for sure,
that was, until we did it, we wouldn't have known. Now we know.
No, for sure. Yeah, that was something that kind of blew me away when I moved here, is the actors here are like weirdly amazing. Like, I don't, like, shockingly good. Like some of the little film screenings I go to. I mean, like, I don't know. It's just like, feels so professional, I thought, like just from some of the local screenings I've been to, where it's like, I was just like grilling the director, like, how did you get them to this place? And in a lot of cases, they were like, we just kind of did maybe a rehearsal and stuff, but they showed up and gave that performance. And I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, really? Like, wow. Okay. But anyway, well, getting into like the production, can you talk about like preparing for the shoot, the crew side of things, location, from your perspective, like storyboards, like how do you go about like kind of getting ready to prepare these scenes and stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, our process was quite lengthy. We actually attached our main actors 2 years before we ended up shooting. So, Natalie Gold and Jeremy Swift, our two lead actors. And it's been, that's been a gift beyond, I can't even, I'm going to gush. But, getting to work with them for 2 years, rehearsing or communicating about it. I mean, we had a strike, we had there were a lot of things going on that kept us from shooting. You know, it took us 2 years from their attachments to go into production. But, you know, I would say, you know, having the script is the most important thing. And thank goodness we had enough time and energy and the good types of feedback to get a script that was really, really good. And that's how ultimately we attracted our actors. Having time with the actors is wonderful, because in indie film production, you don't get a lot of time for anything other than like getting it done. So the fact that we had developed a relationship and had time with the story helped tremendously. In terms of like, once we had the green light and went, you know, right into official pre-production, you know, it was working with the cinematographer, Eve Cohen. She was not local, but we did hire an entire local AC crew that was amazing. But, you know, we spent a lot of times figuring out, you know, what kind of lens we wanted to use, what camera, and what is the look of the film. So we did some, you know, storyboarding and some, you know, mood boarding more, really. And, you know, it was also locations, nailing our locations down. This was a very location-heavy shoot. And so we had a lot of locations work, and our locations team was incredible.
Nice, yeah.
I mean, unbelievable. And so that was key. So pre-production was really about locking down locations, scouting, getting all the technical stuff that we could figure out before we shot, as much as we could figured out.
Sure.
And then we started shooting.
That's cool. So do you kind of, as far as your approach to directing, I mean, is it like kind of getting coverage? Because you said mood boards.
Yeah, if you're talking about, well, so it's you know, my job, I felt, especially in this film, was acting. You know, making sure that acting was the best it could be. And so that meant making a comfortable, you know, location situation for the actors to give their best work, to be available to them, you know, what do they need? So that was my number one priority. Eve, you know, is a director of photography. She's the one who knows way more than I do about technically what's going to look good and how is it. And, you know, we obviously spent a lot of time together going, what we thought in advance, you know, are we going to stay wide mostly, or when are we going in? You know, what are the themes of the film, and how is that reflected in what shots we choose? So we'd had a lot of those discussions before we got on set. And then because we were so location based, we did shoot on a set 2 days, but the rest of our 23 days were not, you know, we're in real live locations. You have to act fast and be on your feet.
Sure.
So while all that prep is important to like sort of get the language of the film, what you're going for, when you show up, you're going to get the best you can get. And, you know, don't get upset.
Yeah, I did hear that you guys shot in a studio. So did you guys like build a scene, or what did you shoot at a studio? And if that's okay to say, which studio did you shoot at?
So it's 35 Left in Central Park, and they were wonderful. We had constructed a piece of set there that was fantastic, and I want to you know, give all the grace to our production design team, Edward De Leon and Petra Vasfari. They did fantastic work on this. We had to recreate, I mean, I'm giving a little bit away here probably, but we had to recreate sort of an old-timey jail, rural jail cell. And we had scouted to find it as a location for years, actually, and never found it. Nothing that looks like what we wanted it to look like. And so we said it would be probably easier if we just built it the way we want it. And that's what was done. And it looked amazing and fantastic. And then there was some additional scenes that we, just because we had the studio, we used it to shoot there. But it was actually very nice to work. I love locations. That's you know, my experience as a producer is mostly in indie film. So I'm very familiar and very comfortable working on location. But there's something also very nice to perfect the craft of, you know, production design in that way, where you can do anything you want. You can light it up any way you want.
For sure.
So I actually had a lot of fun being on a soundstage for 2 days.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice working in the AC and,
Yeah.
you know, on a stage basically like that. And you have complete control of the lighting and absolutely. Well, can you talk about like the actors? So like kind of landing some of your key actors as well as like, you know, I guess what percentage or maybe, you know, some shout outs to maybe some local actors that you guys used.
Sure.
Yeah.
We worked with a casting director for our lead actors. So Adrienne Stern was our casting director out of New York, and she helped us cast our 4 main actors. So Natalie Gold and Jeremy Swift, and then Marin Hinkle and Sendil Ramamurthy. So those are our 4 lead actors. And then we worked with Annie Hamilton casting and Shauna Earp Ballinger, who found the rest of our 30 local actors.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So we had so many wonderful local actors. Shauna actually was in the film. Jason Potter, Scott Takeda, Adam Caton Holland was had an amazing part. He's a local stand-up comedian, but also writer, talented actor too.
Oh, cool.
We had Jason Head, who came in and blew us away. Tyler LaRocca. And there are so many others who were just phenomenal. Everyone did a fantastic job.
Nice,
And actually, just to interject and say, I was amazed at the chemistry between the local actors and the actors we flew in from London, New York, LA, etc. And so you never know. You can't know if that will happen. You can try to cast for it. You could try to wish for it, but it happens or it doesn't. And it was amazing to see that how they worked together, the locals with the non-locals, and the same was actually true with crew as well. There were a few department heads who were not local, but most of the crew was local, and so that chemistry also was very interesting and very, I thought, successful in the end.
Oh, that's good. And that's, I feel like, such an important thing. That's why I'm super obsessed with having good food. Because it's important because it's like the vibe on set. If it sucks, it can be reflected in the film. I mean, not always. You can kind of have a crappy shoot and get, stick to your boards or whatever and get what you need and it's good. But, I feel like when it's going well and the vibe is really good, it's almost reflected in the film.
100%.
So that's awesome to hear that it went so well. And yeah, who knows with people coming in and egos and stuff. And if you can kind of set that.
We had none of that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Hell yeah. Well, cool. Well, can you talk about like the shooting schedule and whatnot? Just like the production itself, how many days to do the film? What did a typical shooting day look like?
Well, it was very busy and a very tight schedule. We wanted to keep it. We wanted to be a little conservative with everything and kind of keep it tight. But at the same time, we had an enormous amount of locations. Like I said, I think we had 21 or 22 locations, which is crazy.
Yeah.
For an indie film,
22 locations. Yeah. Okay.
And different. Yeah, it's not sets; it's location.
Right.
Anyway, there were more sets than that. And then we had about 30 speaking roles, which also is pretty ambitious. And so having to, make the best possible schedule based on that was not easy. There was some additional complications. Some of the actors had schedule requirements that took them away for other films starting certain dates, so we had to accommodate that as well. So it was a tall order, but I think we did the best we could. Joey Lopez was our
shout out to Joey.
Shout out to him. Our first assistant. He worked tirelessly to make this happen and to come up with the best possible schedule. But it was very intense for sure.
How many days?
So we had 23 days of principal photography, and then we had additional B-roll, second camera days, a couple of more days out west. with a
Cool.
very small crew. Yeah. But
So was it like
principal photography was 23 days.
23? And you said you had 22 sets, so was it
It was,
like
I think
kind
it was
of,
21 locations,
21
locations.
23 days.
Yeah.
and it was kind of a day at each location, essentially?
I
No?
mean,
Okay.
no. Some days we had there was one location where we had a whole week, for example. But I mean,
Oh, wow.
it's just based on what the prominence in the script, which means other days we had three locations in
Oh, wow.
one day.
One day we had to
day.
move twice. It
Yeah.
was crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
But one of the one of my pride and joys around this production is the fantastic locations that we were able to secure. To first of all to find and to secure, and I think I'm very proud of that because it does give something to the look of the film, and it does tell a story about Denver and Colorado in a way that, you know, otherwise it wouldn't. Like, we really wanted to be out there in the community, on location, and to feature places that we as Denverites know, but people outside of Denver don't. So I'm quite happy with it and proud of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see it. And you shot out in Telluride, right?
We actually, based on budget and scheduling, and that you really could do a lot locally, we shot our almost everything, you know, Denver and Front Range, so that we didn't have to move everyone to Telluride for 2 weeks.
Yep. No,
It just
I don't blame
wasn't-
you. That would have been a long haul.
But that's why we also chose to do B-roll, you know, so we got the road, we got the car on the road, you know, and we got to Telluride.
Nice. That's cool. Well, what about the cinematography? So you had mentioned, what was her name again?
Her name is Eve Cohen.
Okay. And how did you land her? And, you know, what was that collaboration like?
Yeah. So the short film that I made prior to this film, because, you know, I think Nick, you and I were talking that, you know, we both made quite a few short films. My last short film was called Lillian Rose, and we shot it on the Western Slope in 2017. And I worked with a wonderful DP named Joanna Coelho. And she was actually slated to work on this film as well, but then got an amazing opportunity to DP The Pit, which is a new show on Max by John Wells. You know, it's basically a reimagining of ER. So shout out to that show. It's on now, and she's amazing, and she's killing it. So she highly recommended a good friend of hers, Eve Cohen, and she and I talked, hit it off, and I was very happy to work with her on this film. She is a tremendous talent, a very artistic cinematographer, but also unbelievably skilled at like getting it done. Like, she had the right mix of indie, keep going, and yet getting the best out of each shot we could. So yeah, it was an amazing process working with her.
Nice. Like, what about the equipment?
Yeah, we used an Alexa 35.
Cool.
We used Leica Summilux lenses, and a Nikkor zoom. And, you know, she'd done a series of lens tests before, and just that Leica set felt like the right one for this. You know, some of our inspirations were like Sideways. You know, that film had a lot of beauty in the road trip aspect, and you know, actually a couple of Alexander Payne films were sort of part of our inspiration. And we chose that equipment. It was fantastic.
Nice.
You know, it's a beautiful camera, beautiful lenses.
What about like your B-roll days? Did you do like a drone?
We did do a drone. Yes, we did do a drone. We had some cool shots in the mountains. But yeah, we also did car to car.
Okay.
We also did some inside the car, you know, because on a road trip movie, you need it all.
Oh, that's cool. Did you some interesting rigs on the car and whatnot?
We didn't have to do a lot of car. Well, for the actual conversations in the car during principal photography, that was an interesting experience using a process trailer.
Oh, okay.
They do not exist in Colorado, so we had to bring one in from New Mexico.
Well, this one was from New Mexico, but yeah, we were exploring where to bring it from, and
because it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist here. Yeah.
All right.
Because, you know, when your actors are acting in a car sequence, you know, having dialogue, they should not be driving.
Sure.
So it's a challenging rig to do, and our grip team, you know, ended up really pulling it off, but it was challenging. So we definitely used a process trailer for our major conversations in the car.
All right. And then crew size, I guess, what did that look like roughly each day? And ultimately, what kind of local talent were you able to utilize for some of those roles?
Well, we had about 50 to 60 people every day.
Oh, wow.
I think.
Damn.
Well, not all of them all at once on the set, but most of it wasn't a tiny crew. It was a decent size crew. Most of them local, really. There was
That's
a few department heads who were non-local, and in some cases, just because we had that creative relationship already with those folks, and they had been thinking about this film and sort of aspiring to work on it for more than a year in some cases, 2 years. But everybody else, we privileged recruiting here locally. So our line producer, Elizabeth Mihalic, was very helpful with identifying, the best people around, and so we worked with her to recruit everyone. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what's next for the film? I know you're in post-production, and I know you can't talk about everything, but what's the next couple months look like? Are you going to send it to film festivals?
First we have to finish.
Finish it first.
So, we're currently in picture edit, and we'll hopefully be locking in the next few weeks the picture. Then we are working with composers to create our original score, and a music supervisor for licensing some music, because you got to have some good licensed music in a road trip movie. And then we will also obviously be doing sound design and sound editing, and then putting it all together and color correction. So we have at least a few more months of post work to do, and then we're hoping to
Our hope is to get it to some great festivals and premiere it in the festivals, and then we'll see. Our wish will be to have it distributed in the theaters, like to have a theatrical distribution of the film, because it's a road movie, so I think that's the kind of film you want to see on the big screen.
For sure.
And we also support that. We support films being released in the theater before they go to streaming.
Sure.
So,
well, I'm looking forward to a screening around Colorado, which I'm sure is on the ticket at some point. That'll be a lot of fun, and all the crew and all that. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's talk about Large MediaLabs. Can you just what brought you to start that company here, and what does the future look like for your guys' production company?
Well, it's here because we are.
Nice.
So we want to have a company where we live and work and all that good stuff. Back to the earlier part of the conversation when Iana and I met. I mean, I want to shout out. So I have been writing and visioning and thinking about all the films I've wanted to make over the years, and, done a lot of what I could on my own. But at the end of the day, a really good producing partner is essential, and having a good producer, because you cannot do it all, and you sure as hell can't do it all well. And so, meeting Iana in about 2018 and starting to seriously talk about what does it mean to now do a feature, because my last film, Lily and Rose, was meant to be a precursor to a feature. I shot it on location over a week, hired composers. Like, it was meant to be like a miniature feature in essence. And so that, then I could really say, okay, I think I'm ready to do this, as a feature. Talking to Iana has a lot of experience working with, first time and emerging directors. So that's very valuable, because it's very different making a feature with someone who's done 10. Right. I mean, while I know some things, I know a lot of things I don't know. And so you want someone who really understands the production aspect and the producing, so that you can concentrate on the creative and the storytelling.
Sure.
So I'm just, we are very grateful. I'm very grateful to have found Iana. And then once we started working together, we realized, well, we don't want to just make one film. We really have in mind, I mean, she already had a production company in Europe, and I'd always had a vision of having my own company. So we said, let's make one and let's build out our slate. So that's what we're doing. We are here to tell culturally relevant stories, often centering, female perspectives, but not only. We want to make things that we want to see, and we want to have an impact.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited that you guys are here doing it. I can't wait to see it. Well, yeah, and I met you guys in person for the first time at that industry town hall in November, and they just had another meeting, I think like last week, to kind of keep the ball rolling on that. So I did want to just ask you, especially because you're starting this production company here, what were some takeaways from that event, and kind of where do you guys see from your perspective, the Colorado film industry going?
Well, my takeaway is that there's a lot of goodwill among people in the industry here to see everybody I think everybody understands the assignment. Everybody understands that we want to see this grow. We want to be more, just productive and have more to do here in Colorado and build the industry outward and in a meaningful way. So I think that is something I took away, is that a lot of people are really on the same page about this. Now, how do we do it? That's a different story, and possibly a different discussion
Right.
because very long. But that was kind of actually very encouraging to see that people really would like to see the same thing and build the industry. And everybody's saying, well, I don't understand. There's so much here. There's so much talent. There's the state looks amazing. We could do so much here. And so that kept coming back and back from everyone. I think we do believe that. We believe that a lot can happen here, and it just needs to be done.
It's a tall order, but I agree. I walked away very inspired, and I'm super excited to see where it goes. And I agree. So much talent here.
Yes.
So I think if we kind of all pull together and make it happen, that we could definitely do it.
I agree.
So, do you have any advice for, filmmakers like myself, right? Maybe like getting into writing and directing their first film, any advice about production, even if it's like, don't write Star Wars, like, which is honestly, that's my problem. I am like obsessed with special effects, and I always write stuff that's like takes me forever to create, and like, and I'm killing myself trying to do everything. So, but anyway, do you have any advice for filmmakers?
At the same time, Star Wars was written that way.
By the way,
initially was an indie film.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I'll take that in the sense that I think it's more important than ever to think about the end result for your film. A filmmaker said this to me 5 years ago, probably, when I just finished Lily and Rose, and was like, how are you doing your next thing? And she's like, I'll tell you, she had 1 or 2 features under her belt, and that was it. But she was like, think about the distribution first. And of course, none of us as creatives want to think that. But I think what would be helpful is think about your audience first. Are they out there? Are they willing to buy tickets? Or where are they, right? Actually, where are they? If they're on YouTube, then you are going to tell your story for YouTube. If they are, wanting to buy tickets to the movie theater and you're a cinematic kind of filmmaker, then you need to look at the box office, who's buying what, how much, and then budget accordingly.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we are in a business that costs a lot. We're in an art form that costs a lot of money to make, and it takes a lot of people. And if we want to do it in a way that's healthy and not kill ourselves and not pay ourselves, then you absolutely have to look at the marketplace. So that's my biggest advice as you start to make the leap from shorts, which are really not about a financial it costs money to make, but you're not trying to make money, so it doesn't cost that much.
Right.
You certainly can do short form and have it make money, but then you have to really be thinking about that. So, but your leap to features, work backwards.
No, that's a good idea, yeah.
And have a bunch of ideas. Don't be wedded to just one necessarily, unless you know this is the one you need to tell. Then you have to craft that story for the right market or the right form. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. maybe from a production side, what are your thoughts? I've had people tell me like, oh, well, if you're a first-time director, then this has got to be under $500,000 and this and that. So I don't know, like, are there certain production things that people should be thinking about? Like, again, that's why I bring up, don't write Star Wars, like write something that's like doable, like, or something.
Well, but at the same time, how many, films can we have that happen in one room? And,
Right.
So, you have to think of the big picture as well. It's where is it going to play? Who's going to want to watch it? And,
and how much money are they going to pay to watch it?
And how,
Right.
and I
And work
agree with Sheryl on that. It's look at the whole process and look at the end goal and what that is. And I know it's not easy to do, especially when you're starting and you're still figuring out what is it you want to say, and you're kind of trying to dig within you to find meaning that you want to put out there on the screen. And simultaneously we're asking you to look at the end result, and so it's a
hard.
bit of a
Right.
schizophrenic way of thinking, but it is very helpful to do that. Yes, obviously, you can. It's hard to say, well, I have to write a screenplay that's not going to cost more than $500,000. Sure, if that's a way to approach it and you can do that, then great. But it's. I would say there are films that can cost $500,000, and the same film exactly can cost $5 million, and it just really depends on how it's produced. If it's a good story, though, if the script is good, then that's going to move things forward. And if it's not going to move things forward. And so, like, the quality of the script, the quality of the writing is a prerequisite to any production.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's why I started. I mean, I've always been a writer, and I've enjoyed writing. And at times I thought maybe I'll just be a writer and, try to sell the work and have other people direct it. But, writing, the only thing it costs you is your time. So you think very hard and work very hard on the craft of writing, opens all the other doors. But so write as much as you can, get really good at that. And then, don't be worrying about budget when you're writing, per se. I mean, it's got to be great. It's got to be something meaningful out there and something that means something to you. So write write Star Wars if that's what you really believe in. And then it will open the doors. If it needs to be made, if it must be made and will be made, then it will find its way.
That's cool, and that's comforting to hear. Is like, if it's a good script, then you can
But
probably
don't just
get it
write
made.
one script over 100.
Sure.
If you're 50 years old and you've written one, write a lot of them.
Yeah,
and then go back to that and come. If you're a writer, you got to write a lot of things.
Right. No, cool. Thank you. Yeah, that's good. Well, yeah. So for the listeners that might be wanting to get involved in some of your guys' productions, especially as they continue, what would be the best way for them to do that? I don't know if there's like a email that people would submit towards, like, once you're like gearing up for production or something. I don't know.
We're not really opening up the doors to lots of productions. Because I've been writing for such a long time, we have quite a few of my projects and projects we have with other partners. So I would say for sure keep an eye out on at Large MediaLabs, our Instagram page, our website. We have a newsletter that we're putting out. So absolutely, when we start getting to the point where we've raised enough money to have like a development fund or to maybe create programs that can support developing other projects, we will put it out there on either our website, which is byandlargemedia.com, or our Instagram at byandlargemedialabs. Until then, it's just such a hard. I mean, this is our first project,
Sure.
and it's taken 11 years to get here, and it's our baby, and I hope it does really, really well. But the bandwidth, I mean, it's just Iana and me. This entire company is 2 people. So don't send us your scripts just yet.
Yes. But subscribe to the newsletter.
Okay.
So it's, if you scroll down on the website, you can subscribe to it, and we do give information periodically. We send it every few weeks, and give news from the film, from many things.
And happy to talk about our journey. Nick, I appreciate you doing this because,
no problem.
our industry is so, they try and make it so black box, like gatekeeper, and no one knows. And so I think that's one of the things that people love about Colorado is we're not that way, and I don't want to live, elsewhere. I want to live here and have a good quality of life, and also live in a community that's really about community and collaboration. So, I think, we'd be happy to come back on eventually a year from now or 2 years and say, here's what we learned once we actually got the film out there.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love that. Yeah. Cool. Well, Iana, Sheryl, thank you so much.
Iana.
What do I keep saying? Ivana, Iana. I'm so sorry. Iana, Sheryl, thank you guys for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. This has been really great chatting with you.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think you touched on your social media channels. I almost forgot that, but let me just get that one more time. The website and then the social media channels that people can
So
follow.
our website is byandlargemmedia.com. And then our Instagram is at byandlargemedialabs. And then Iana and I both have our own, social channels as well that are just our names, which you will publish on the link, so we don't have to spell them.
Yeah, and I'll include those in the descriptions, the link to the social media channels. But yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed chatting with you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, this is Set Talks, the podcast that helps you navigate and connect with the Colorado film industry. Thank you for tuning in.